Welcome to the Surf Strong Show. I'm your host, Greg Finch. I'd like to remind you to like, subscribe, and comment wherever you get your podcasts or at surfstrongfit.com/podcast for all full episodes, notes, transcripts, and links that we talk about in every episode. Thanks for joining us. It really means a lot. On today's episode of the Surf Strong Show, we welcome Phil from Rise Up Retreats, one of the leading purveyors of surf retreats in Central America. Just really are growing into a really full, holistic experience around great surf, great locations, great coaching, and just a place to connect and disconnect, to come back to your life and bring that positive experience with you. Really had a great time talking to Phil. Appreciate his time. Let's get to it. Hey, Philip, thanks for joining us on the Surf Strong Show. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here on your busy schedule and share a little bit about what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. Tell us kind of what are the cool things that you're doing.
Yeah, so we're just about to start our high season. Yeah, pretty excited. Well, we already started. Because we focus, like I mentioned before, on more beginner intermediate surfers. So this is the small wave season. So it's not for the guys looking for 10-foot barrels, but it's perfect weather, perfect waves. And yeah, just really nice in this part of the world this time of year.
Yeah, nice. So tell me a little bit more specific about Rise Up. You guys have been doing retreats for how long now? When was the first Rise Up retreat?
Rise Up started in 2009, actually, when the idea first came about. Yeah, so I would have been about 28. And I was living in a city called Leon in North Nicaragua and surfing all these beaches close by. And just one day, one thing led to another. I was thinking I need to move back to the beach. And I was surfing with some friends, and there's this volcano at sunrise. And I don't know, the idea just came to me, as the sun was rising behind this volcano. I was like, I'm going to start a surf-related business. I'm going to call it Rise Up. So our first logo was a volcano and a sunrise.
Nice.
Yeah. So it just kind of started with, with the idea, and then we, just me and one other person, and chipped away at it for a few years, and it kind of became a full-time business. I would say in 2013 is when we really kind of got into it.
And so your first locations were Nicaragua. That's where you really started from. You're still based out of Nicaragua, is that right?
Yeah, Nicaragua is, where my heart is, and started, just to show the love of, I just love the country and the people and the wide variety of waves and very empty waves, So between, the nature, the waves, the good people. So we started on little beaches called Salinas Grandes, which is a little further south than where we're based right now. Yeah.
So, nice. Yeah. And so I think I remember reading 2019 is when you kind of expanded out, right? I think you expanded, correct me if I'm wrong, you started doing retreats in Guatemala, started doing retreats in Costa Rica, and I think even your home country, Barbados, you do some retreats. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, so Nicaragua was home base and where we were the entire time. Up until 2018, there was a crisis. So we started in Nicaragua, and up until 2018, it was 100% Nicaragua based, primarily North Nicaragua, because that's where, just where I fell in love with from my first trip here in 2003, and, moved to Nicaragua in 2007. So, and then 2018, there was a political crisis, unfortunately, that made us, we basically stopped the business, left Nicaragua. It was a very challenging time, but we built up such a good reputation, and people wanted to come and see us. So that's where the idea to start in our neighboring country, Costa Rica, and then Guatemala and Barbados. So that's kind of where it stemmed from. And we kept it going a lot in Costa Rica, a little bit in Barbados, a little bit in Guatemala.
Nice.
And then we've gone kind of full circle at the moment. To be honest, we're actually in 2024, we're only going to do retreats in Nicaragua. So that's kind of like the decision, but in two different locations. So Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
imagine some of that is just logistics. I mean, running something as complicated with all the details involved of a really successful retreat with a lot of moving parts, doing that from
Yeah.
distant locations, I imagine would be pretty challenging.
Yeah. It has, you know, the way the world works is when, when you really want something, the universe provides. So, like when we made the decision to do the retreats in Costa Rica, we just met the right people, the right partners, like the local surf coaches that we worked with. So it kind of all worked at that time.
Yeah.
And same with Guatemala and then Barbados. I'm from there, so I really wanted to try to do something there. Um, but as you say, there's a lot of logistics,
Yeah.
and especially for what we do, because we don't do anything like there's a lot of feeling based around it, and like guest experience is so important, and um, as it should be. But so it's hard. It can be hard to offer what we want to offer, the vision of what I want to offer, um, in different places, especially when you're not there, you don't live there full time, and all that type of stuff. So,
Right. Yeah, if something
um,
changes, you're not sure, to get a feel for an experience, you have to be experiencing it. And yeah.
yeah,
And also just pulling it
yeah.
back into where you base as your home and being able to share that part of it. It probably has a really good feeling to it as well.
Yeah, it is, and it's also like there's some changes coming up within Rise Up, just as as we evolve. Trying to make it a little more holistic and healthy. It always has been very healthy, but you know, like adding in new aspects and really working on the surf coaching program and that type of stuff. It's just easier to just have a stable location for
Yeah.
this next year while we get organized again, and then we might do retreats in other places and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's a
yeah.
great kind of time right there to kind of let's just describe like what a Rise Up retreat is like a client coming in to experience Rise Up for the first time. What does it entail? What are some of the things that you prioritize, and what is the feeling of that you really work hard to convey to them?
Yeah, I think so the values of Rise Up, one of the three, well, there's quite a are around community, well, service, community, and connection, communication. So I think that's probably the biggest and most important part, in combination with just making sure guests have an incredible time. But yeah, it's like you want to come and feel at home, enjoy all the aspects, the accommodation, food, the coaching, all those type of things. And we are, from the time you were first contact with us, we have our team is with you all the way through to the end, by email, by WhatsApps, whatever. And I think the community side of it, there's the feeling of being at home and feeling like you're looked after, safe, and on an adventure, which is
Yeah.
really fun. But we're there for you all the time, so and it's like the logistics are, you arrive, there's amazing food. You meet your chef who, food is communal style. You hang out with your surf coach from the day you arrive to the time you leave. So you get personally connected with them. And we like to look at it more like a coaching kind of, sometimes it even ends up being more like life coaching. Sir, you meet yourself in the ocean. So try to just work really a lot with a great team that, we're just there for you to have an awesome experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's such a privilege. I've been coaching somebody that's just learning to surf, right? It's really on
yeah.
the front end of their experience here. And
Yeah.
that's not often who I work with, but it's such a
Yeah.
pleasure to like, I just got a message from them, a week ago or so, like they got a new board to them. And it was like, I got to share like their first wave on that new board, and that
Yeah.
experience, I'm sure you get that quite often with people on the front end of their surfing experience. I mean, stoke is
Yeah.
stoke.
And all the way through, like we have people who learn to surf with us for the first time, all the way through to, we do have more advanced surfers and things like that. And we get a lot of people that come back to us year after year.
Yeah.
So we get to develop on that. That's part of like one of the things that we wanted to work on. We want to create something where it's actually going to be more online, as we were just talking about online stuff. that we're going to have an online platform where we can stay connected with our guests and, offer them coaching when they're not with us, for an example, and it's a beautiful thing, from in the water, out the water, sharing the meals and sharing the adventures. Sometimes we go volcano hiking, on the boats. We've started to add in things like ice baths and a lot more breath work type of things, which has been really cool, interesting to see. And surf skating, just like a very, how do you say, practical, professional kind of surf coaching program, but combined with the fact that it's like feeling based. So how does each guest feel and things like that,
And also that ability to expand out that feeling of being in the water and that connection to the ocean that way. This is kind of the core of what I do with my coaching. Is a lot of the clients that I work with, the surfers, they're at a point in their life, they have a mortgage now, they have kids now, they just have a lot more responsibilities that of course takes that pie of the time and cuts a lot of the surf time out of it. And it's that ability to stay prepared and stay ready and feel connected to the ocean, even when there has to be a week between sessions. So when you get back to that, you have such a positive experience, as opposed to, oh, my pop-up was slow or my breath was not there. And on a kind of a micro level, what you sounds like you're really trying to develop is that ability for whatever range of surfer ability they are. The time that we're actually on the wave is very, very small. And to be able to improve those skills away from that time just maximizes that ability when you're in the water. And that's really powerful.
Yeah. So it's quite intense in that respect because, we have video coaching and the surf skating and all that type of stuff and surf theories. But that balance where, a lot of people, especially the dynamic of the people that are staying with us, like you said, the world is just busy. There's a lot happening. And we want people to go home feeling like rested and rejuvenated as well. So it's like trying to figure out that balance. Like, of course, we can surf 8 hours a day if that's what people have the energy, but having the other aspects is nice too. Really good food. Love food, love healthy food. So.
Recover. And also too, at the core of it, they're on vacation.
Exactly. It's a vacation. Exactly. We offer like a pure vacation experience. So it's like, we want to just people not to have to think. They can just literally for those who can literally put their phone down.
That ability to have choices is pretty, it's pretty important. And that circling back to you as the facilitator, the logistics of doing that is a balancing act. You really have to kind of.
Yeah, it is a big balancing act. And especially because it's a very people-based business. So, there's the guest side, but we also have the whole crew side. So, you're managing and trying to be present and available and put it all together. There's a lot going on sometimes. There's like 25 of us that work together at the moment. So it's like, it's pretty cool. It's a privilege. It's a blessing, to be honest. I really enjoy it. And, as I've getting older now, and I've really been working on on the team side, working with like a business coach, life coach, to try to facilitate making things easier and smoother. So which is interesting.
Yeah. Developing those leadership skills, that is not easy. I mean, it's this constant inward facing what you're working on, outward facing how you're communicating and projecting to that, getting things done. I mean, we talked about this a little bit back and forth before we got on the recording. Was the amount of details that your business entails doesn't go away, meaning you're having a bad day or if staff is having a bad day, those details remain. And to be able to have really strong leadership through that, I'm sure that feels like something that you're always working to improve and grow on.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to working on myself more so as well, like trying to find that balance. So that's really been a cool part. I have a family, I have a daughter, and the team is everything, the community and everything that we work with, and also the wider community. That's like, ultimately it's the funnest part of it, but also the hardest part of it.
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Yeah. Like I
It's,
partly
it's fun.
joke sometimes with my business. Like my business is a people business too, and it's just like like you just mentioned, it's such a privilege. It's such a privilege to be part of this experience with them. And I've been fortunate enough to have clients like I just was talking to them the other day. Like I've had two or three clients that I've been training for over 15 years. I mean, that is such a privilege. And at the same time, you step back and you're like, but it's people. And, me being a part of the people equation is like, okay, I have to focus on making sure that I get my fitness in, I get my surfing in. And it's not a selfish act. It's actually an investment in all of these things that we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. It's then you can do the we and you can do the all. That's like something that I'm really bad at doing in the past. And, but trying to get better at that.
It's a continuum, right? Like most things, it's a continuum. So talk a little bit more about that, like what you just mentioned, working on that balance with the kind of business that you have. It's intense, it's immersive, it is an experience. So how are you able to? Do you have tools that you've worked on for yourself to be able to kind of check out for a little bit and balance between those things? How are you working to improve those things?
I would say like really it's only coming in this last year where I've really started to work on it, like focused on it more. And the big tools is that, to be honest, I work with, I have like a life coach. I call her like our wisdom teacher. She helps me a lot. So working with her and then just working on communication. That's also the big thing where, like the communication, to myself, but and to the crew and all that that's been the biggest thing I've had to work on, personally, like how we communicate, feedback, and putting all those things in place and making myself available and vulnerable without always being available and vulnerable, if that makes sense. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like having boundaries around time and my energy and things like that. So I can say, okay, well, I'm available, for these hours of the day. And then I say these other 2 hours are for, let's say, whatever it might be, working out, surfing, sleeping, whatever needs to be done,
Yeah. It's so much of that setting up expectations for your team and your family, for yourself too. And it is this is what we were joking before, is like we were setting up, some of the technical things in the start of this recording. And it's like, what amazing tools we do have available to us. Like, you're in Nicaragua, I'm in California. We're having this conversation in real time. I mean, if you stop and step back, you kind of blow your mind. The flip side of that, of course, is if you are not careful and you are not able to protect that energy for yourself, you could be on and connected all the time. And at some point, something's going to slip.
Yeah. And I think that's where, that's probably how you use the time. And then being just really great, like really trying to empower the team that I have, so that they feel their value and, or how do you say, they're into the mission and vision of like what we're trying to create. And then
they're buying into that. It's their part of that mission themselves. They're not just fulfilling yours. It's them as well.
Yeah. So they can, everyone has their their way of looking. Now I'm 41, and like I said, started Rise Up when I was 28. So also have to like be realistic that it's just like the way I live and things are not the same as when I started, and I don't want to live that way anymore. I want to enjoy. Right. We create the retreats to like represent a way of life like a dream life, like, and I try to live it. I did just come out of the ice bath before we started. Nice. I have surfed today and try to eat healthy and spend have community stuff, so the retreat is like a little bubble where you're like, you get in and you have this incredible food and you have the incredible people, a really beautiful place. The waves are really close, or actually right in front. And then every day is just like an adventure. We're just like having joy and adventure with cool people.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I would like to do every day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you really are, it's genuine and it's
Yeah.
real, but you really are presenting this opportunity for people to live that aspect that is possible for them, but it is just a bubble for them. Their lives, their full-time lives are somewhere else, but they're able to click into this very real experience. And circling back to what you said earlier, what you're growing to in the community aspects, stay connected to them when they come back and go forth. People crave that so much now. We could go into the COVID aspect of things. We could go into more people working remotely, changing in community about how people stay connected. There is such a craving for that. People they might know that they want that. They don't know about how to get it. And even if they don't know they want it, it is missing. And when they're presented with that, it's like this thing wakes up in them. I've seen it so many times on surf trips. I just went on a surf retreat down to Mexico recently, and I was seeing this thing happening, this energy happening that's how I could vocalize it. That's what people were really sensing at that moment. We got great surf, and that always helps, of course, but it was this sense of true connection that you could just see people were buzzing with it. Yeah.
And that I would say that's probably the most, beautiful part of it, outside of, the great waves and location, is just the connections that people get and how connected people feel, for the most part. And I've seen connections, from, let's say, when we started to now. There's guests, like we've had guests stay with like one person 17 times since, and she found us in the very first year we started, super randomly, because I don't even know how she found us. And and then you see people, they make friends on the retreats, and then they go off and do other surf trips together or connect at home. And there's all these friendships and bonds that I've seen being created that started at Rise Up. Even relationships, like people, not necessarily that happens often, but I've seen like one couple in particular, they met at Rise Up and now they're married and they have 2 kids, for example.
That's so great.
You know what I mean? And it's like, that's beautiful. That's super cool.
Of course. Yeah. I'm sure that's a very prominent review on your website and your social media.
Yeah. No, there's so many different aspects,
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
Yeah.
So talk to me, kind of run me through like a day. Let's say someone's on a Rise Up retreat for, let's just say it's 5 days. I don't know how long you normally do them, but let's say they're there for 5 days. So let's say like the 3rd day in, they're over their nerves. Maybe they've got a couple surfs in. What's like an average day like for them?
Well, the day always depends on the tide and the best time to surf. So that's like our driving force. But let's say an average day would be, so we do something called what we call like cold breakfast, or like pre-surf breakfast. So, it's coffee, tea, and all that type of stuff. A bit of fresh breads. That's available from like 4:30, even 5 in the morning. Let's call it pre-sunrise. So that's usually where, let's say it's a high tide morning, people are surfing at 5:30. We'll go, everyone will meet there, everyone will catch up. And the night before, they already know the plan. So meet up with the coaches and head off to the beach, surf, let's call it 3-4 hours on the mission. Let's say if it's out front, or we drive to, or take the boat to whichever beach is best for that day. And then 3-4 hours of surfing, come back. Then you have like the hot breakfast and a little downtime. Days can be kind of intense. And then in between the meals, so between breakfast and lunch, is going to be potentially yoga and video coaching, or one or the other, let's call it. And then you'll have lunch, and then probably a second surf, like a free surf in the afternoon. And then go for sunset, and then sunset, bonfire, dinner, And then each day will be slightly different. The yoga time will be a bit different. Within the surf lessons itself, we've started to do, some mobility stuff. And then four of the main activities we do outside of yoga is going to be, there's an ice bath, what we call party session, with breath work. There's surf skating once or twice. We do like a yoga nidra meditation on the second night, just because it's like get people to drop in and have a chance to chill. Some people just come so wound up,
Yeah.
And then we also add in, boat trip, potential volcano hike. But yeah, a lot of surfing. And then every day is like a little bit of like either surf theory related to, like it might be a visual, or it might be practical, or it might be video analysis. So yeah, a lot of surfing and good food, surfing, meal times, yoga. Those are like the three staples of the day. And then we kind of add in depending on the schedule. And every night the schedule is, presented, it changes slightly. And then everyone's connected. Like, there's let's say two guests for one coach. And basically like the coach kind of lets them know what's happening each day, Yeah. It's pretty.
That sounds fabulous.
Yeah. And all the meals are, care of. Everything's taken care of. The driving, people just really don't have to think. They're just like, go here, do this. And it's all optional. So if someone's like, I just don't want to surf today, or I need to relax, then the places are beautiful. It's not always a nice pool, beautiful empty beaches. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. And then, food is basically whatever we do, buffet style type of stuff. But, people, we get all the information about people's diets and allergies, all that type of stuff pre-arrival. So we know, we know what we're catering for that week. Yeah.
Could you use a free SurfStrong performance checklist sent right to your email? Go to surfstrongfit.com, click instant access right on the homepage there, and I'll be happy to send it to you. That's surfstrongfit.com for your free surf performance checklist. And now, back to the show.
We, connect with the community somehow, so that we do also do horse riding, things like that, but we have an NGO, and depending on the week, we might go out in the community and do something on, related to the NGO, but that's not every single week, but it is a part of it,
Yeah. Talk more about that. I know you have Rise Up Kids as an aspect of those things you do, and that might be what you're alluding to right there. Like, talk about giving back to the community and the connections you have in Nicaragua.
Yeah, I think the main connection is just obviously from living here and employing the people and spending time out in the community just in general. And then we've always, in the past, we're always doing like different things in the community, whether it be at the school or, a sea turtle project where we, have a nursery. During COVID, we did food drives. We helped disabled kids, all that type of stuff. So in the beginning, it was actually called the Pure Earth Project because that was like years ago. And then thankfully for a lady, her name is Heather. She was a guest of ours. And we were explaining how we're finding it really hard to just get like funding and things like that, because a lot of people want to donate, but just with the way the payment structure, it was really hard for people to just donate online and things like that. Because we were an NGO, but Nicaragua has some complicated laws. So Heather was like, I'll set you up an NGO in the States. So that was kind of where Rise Up Kids was born, because her main thing was like, let's really focus on the school and education in the beginning. So our first project was like a revamp of a school and in the local village close to where we were. So we called it Rise Up Kids International. Heather went home, set it all up. And then, that was in pre-2018. And since then, we just basically, at the beginning of each year, we kind of talk about, what we want to do. And, the main things are, we have disabled kids. We have a surf club for girls. A continual program at the school, which is either, donation based or we do different activities. We just did a dentist project last weekend or the weekend before, where some couple dentists from Florida came, donated their time, and then we connected with a local dentist, and we did about 50 people in 2 days. Here there's massive dental crisis because well, the diet and things like that, but also people just don't go to the dentist because it's expensive. So yeah, for example, one of the guys that work with us, he's a younger guy, he's like 19 or something, and he's been working with us just recent, the last 6 months. He'd never been to dentist in his life, and he's 19. So, um, so yeah, that was, so dentist stuff. Now we're gonna have an ongoing like once a month dentist kind of program. Yeah, and just little projects here and there, just kind of like what makes sense without going. And if anyone has an idea for a project, we like connect. Like our big thing this year is to try to, in 2024, is to, because we're an official NGO and things are becoming more stable in Nicaragua, to try to connect with maybe a couple other bigger NGOs to do bigger projects, which will be related probably around school education, things like that. So yeah, it's kind of ongoing.
It's nice to have that. It's nice to have that focus, within kids. Some of these primary things like dental, like the positive ripple effect of something like dental care. Like we think of it as like, oh, just our teeth, but of course it's so intrinsic to overall health. And
so much.
So much. And you're right. You're choosing between, say, the extreme choice of feeding your children or them going for dental care. Well, the decision's made for you. So to have a resource like that where you're providing something that the choice has already been made and they get such that positive health boost at such a critical point. And then back to focusing on schools, again, same thing. It's that ripple effect, like the ability to have education at that age and then what can become of that. It's like, how do we make that impact that we're trying to provide exponential as it goes forward to give as much as we possibly can? That's really wonderful.
Yeah, I think that the main thing that we just decided is that, like what are small, tangible projects that we can do consistently, that make a big impact, so we support, I think, 5 or 6 disabled kids. And, one of them, for example, he'd never had any health care in his life and he was stuck in a chair. He was like 4 years old and he couldn't walk. And he had it was pretty sad, but he sat in that chair all day, and then he slept on a without a mattress, for example, like stuff like that. You're like, wow, I don't even, so just like getting him some health care, some clothes and medicine, certain medicines so his body could, at least like function a little bit better, was like a life-changing for him, so those are, little things like that. And then the sea turtle project stuff is always cool because people like that. And, it's a big delicacy here, eating all the sea turtle eggs. So, yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's small things, but they make a big difference,
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the impact. You can see it tangibly around you.
Yeah, and it's not like too long-term where it's like, oh, maybe one day this might, it's like, let's do these small projects, but continually and see,
and I think you touched on a really important factor, which is being able to be consistent with them. So instead of reinventing this brand new project that we're taking all this stuff on, you say small, but with big impact, absolutely. And being able to replicate them consistently, I mean, that becomes, again, exponential.
Yeah. And then connecting with private people or other surf or businesses in the area, and then we can do like some bigger, like we helped with a water project, which people donated for us, and then we put our money as a part of that project, which is really cool because you get more done that way. So yeah, there's a NGO, a resort down the road from where we are, and they have their own NGO too. So we've done a few projects together. Like through COVID, we did the whole the food drives for 3-4 months where we gave food to like 200 families. So that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. So I'd love to hear your path to surfing. Like, obviously you talked about, growing up in Barbados, like talk a little bit about Barbados and for those that have never been there or don't know much about it, talk about the people that are there, talk about Barbados, talk about your path to surfing. We'd love to hear that backstory for you.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Barbados. Born there. My mom is British. So, my father's from Barbados. So, but I grew up there, born there, and yeah, for those who don't know, it's a Caribbean island. It's in the east, far east. It's a small island. Takes like 20 minutes to drive from east to west. It has an Atlantic side and a Caribbean side. So, and it sticks out where the trade winds are. So very consistent winds. So it's a popular windsurfing, kite surfing destination.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I'm just very lucky. Like my daughter pretty much lives a very similar life to what I live, where could walk to the beach. So always was swimming, things like that. I actually played tennis more so when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But went to the beach every few days and on the weekends with friends and things. And then I would say surfing was always there. I surfed, and then I actually started bodyboarding more so as I got into being more of a teenager, and I really took that on as more my passion. I don't know why. We have all these like kind of heavier little slabby reefs in Barbados, which is just really fun because you just get like really um, but yeah, probably like 10, 11, just really started to surf more. And then, teenage years. And then I went to live in England when I was 19. And I think that's what really, started my trajectory of traveling, looking for waves. Because at that time, you basically open the newspaper and they'd have all these travel deals. So, I started to go like all over Europe first. And then I started to go to like Indonesia, and then did a couple trips around the world looking for waves. So been to all the iconic spots, um, G-Land and Tahiti and places like that. And yeah, so I was kind of mixing up. I did a lot of bodyboarding, and then I kind of started surfing full time more. So I gave up on the bodyboarding. I probably in my 20s. Now I'm 41. So I've always been connected to the ocean. Always, came traveling to Nicaragua one time, then again the next year, and then moved here the next year. So yeah, had a lot of opportunity leaving Barbados to travel. And then in Barbados, yeah, it's just like surfing now has become so much more popular just in general in the world. And now there's obviously money to be made. So there's a lot, like when I was growing up, surfing was like for the bums. Like it's in that cusp of that generation. It's like, oh, you just surf, and everyone presumes that you just hang out on the beach and surf and smoke weed. And they weren't wrong in that respect. That was quite a bit part of it, but it was also a cool community to grow up in because it was a very small surf community in Barbados at that time. So it was just a cool. And Barbados is so small. Just you can walk to the beach and you go there and you spend hours every day. Um, yeah, I don't know. If people have been to the North Shore of Oahu, Barbados is quite similar to there. If there's any, had to kind of relate another popular destination. Not as consistent waves, obviously, but
Yeah. But
yeah,
Soup Bowls, when it's on, that wave is just amazing. I was
yeah,
lucky enough, like in January, see what would it have been now, 21? We
yeah,
were, my wife and daughter love the beach and love the ocean. They don't
yeah,
surf as much because where we are is cold, and they're just
yeah,
like, oh, it's just too much. So the request was, okay, after Christmas, we're going on this trip. And for me, it has to be surf. And
yeah.
for them, it has to be warm water and a nice destination. And if you put those things together in December, there's only a few choices, and Barbados was way up there in that one. And
So, so,
so
so you've been,
we
yeah.
spent 10 days, and we rented a house in Bathsheba for 10 days, and I just
Oh,
absolutely
nice,
loved it.
nice. Yeah, that's
It
great.
of all the places I've traveled,
Yeah,
I've traveled a lot for surfing, and there's been places that, of course, I just have amazing memories of, and waves and everything. But as far as an experience and
hmm,
being part of culturally and the space and the time, and Barbados is probably my favorite place I've ever been. There's something about the energy on the island
yeah,
and the interaction with the culture and the people. They were just, I mean, to say that they're friendly is just such an understatement. I mean,
yeah,
it just radiated off of them like this positive reaching out and connecting. Like you could just sense it immediately. I just loved it. I'll definitely go back.
yeah,
It's like on
yeah,
there's a lot of places I haven't been yet and I want to go, but like spending a couple months just in a
yeah.
house again in
Oh,
Bathsheba sounds pretty great.
hello. Um, Well, you hit the nail on the head with Barbados. It's a hard place to describe, but the vibes are good.
Yeah, it
And
really
then
is. I'll
yeah,
convey this story real quick. My wife and daughter would just sleep in, and I would just get up super early. I always do that whenever I'm traveling with them and they're surf around. Like I'll just go surf like first light and get a couple
yeah,
hours in before they even wake up. And it was the trade winds were on, so it was a little cross shore. There
hmm
was swell. I
yeah,
had swell the whole time I was there, so that was great. So there wasn't a lot of people out. And I just went and surfed and came back in and got a few, but it was just mostly just the paddling. And this woman was walking her dog, and she was like, like 100 feet away, like far enough away that you wouldn't like be expected to like interact. And she just called out to me and she said, I'm not going to try the accent because that would just sound so bad and insulting. But
yeah. I
she said,
lost mine, but okay. Yeah,
she said, did you go surfing? And I said, yeah. And she said, good for you. Good for you. It's so great that you did that. It was so genuine and so
yeah,
unexpected. Like the rest of my day was just that much better. And there was something about in that small little interaction. Like it was just a capsule. Like, how do you try to radiate this back? Like, how do you try to give it back? And it was so much easier there. And I try to remind I flash on that so often, that
yeah,
experience. Like, she went out of her, she probably didn't even feel like she went out of her way. She just said it because that's what came into her mind. But I reflect on that so much of like, if you can do that in as many instances as possible as you can in your life, like your life and those you interact with are just going to be that much better. It seems so simple and
yeah,
difficult to do at the same time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Barbadian people and places, it's magic. Like so very. I feel very blessed. I was able to grow up there. And
Yeah.
and growing up there was great. The school
Yeah.
was good. It's safe and
Yeah.
a strong community of friends that I grew up with. People that
Yeah.
I'm friends with now to today, which is cool. Obviously growing, now at a different stage of life, and I have my own family and we have the business and stuff. But it's like I'm just so grateful to be from there.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and there's so many waves there. It's like a lot of. It's just not as consistent as you want it to be. There's always going to be like wind swell,
Yeah.
but when it's
Yeah.
on, there's some really great waves. There's a lot of options on the west coast, and you can surf north, south, east, west, which is really cool. West less,
Yeah.
but um,
And you mentioned it too, like you can get around the island like so quick.
so
You're
quick.
like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm gonna go over there now. It's like not even that far.
yeah. As long once you learn, especially like if you've been there a while or from there, all the little back roads,
Yeah.
then you can get around the island way quicker than people even realize. Because now it got a bit more developed, so there's quite a bit of traffic and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward. Next trip is gonna be I'm gonna go there in February for like a week.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. Now, do you still have family there?
yeah, my mom lives there and my dad. My mom and dad live like on the west coast. Yeah, so
Nice. Nice.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now,
yeah.
so February, they'll still be like late season, like or it'd be like still core of the season, right? You still could
It's
get
like
waves.
part of the season to get waves on like the west coast. Like
Yeah.
anytime there's gonna be, I think there's a huge storm that I saw some videos of right now on the East Coast, like a
Yeah.
big cold front that created a big. So if that comes down and tracks into like North Caribbean, then
Yeah.
then we'll get like the swell, the North swell on the West Coast, and then that's where you have all those just blue water, perfect little reefs, lefts, right, and there's like 15 waves, and you can drive to all of them in like 15 minutes. Just
So,
pull up and you
yeah,
see it.
probably what's pretty amazing about that is when it's on, all those waves are on. So it's
It's all
like, okay,
whole coast is on when there's a swell
yeah,
that's and it's like it's kind of all day. Doesn't matter about the tide or anything like that. Some waves the tide matters more. Not like Nicaragua, the tide is so important here. Um,
yeah,
some waves you can't surf at high tide, and some you can't surf. Vice versa. Whereas there, tide is like high tide, low tide doesn't really matter as much.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that goes back to what you were describing about like the plan for during your retreats, and that's what's so critical is having all that information. And what is so powerful about it is when people are coming in for this experience, they'll learn that over the time, but they don't have to worry
oh
about
yeah,
it. They click
yeah.
into this experience and being there.
yeah, they learn about it, but they don't have to worry about it because that's like
Yeah.
where, put so much time into trying to figure it out and being out there. So it's good. And yeah, I mean, the connection to the ocean, just like, I just feel I've always been connected to the ocean since I was, I basically born, I guess.
Mhm.
And I love all, I do enjoy, I love the spiritual side of it. I love all the feelings and the connection to the earth and all that stuff. But I also do enjoy the learning about the technical side. So I do
Yeah.
enjoy that we share that side a little bit too. Like I love understanding the tides and the moon, and the way the ocean floor is shaped, and why is this swell so different to that swell, and all that stuff. I find really interesting, as well.
Yeah. I think it just deepens that connection,
Yeah,
having some of that understanding of that science behind it. And, become absolutely weathermen. Like, okay,
yeah,
this angle of this swell and, and that's over the experience and time. Like, oh, like there's this one, local break here. That's a reef break that just doesn't break that much. And because if it's like 215 angle on a south, it won't be. But if it's 220, 223, then it'll work. And it's like,
yeah,
that's an amazing amount of detail to have that you just kind of get over time. And again, being able to share that with people, there's a language that we have as surfers over time that we just kind of it just becomes who we are. And when you're talking to other surfers that have surfed for a long time, you're speaking this language as if it's normal. And then you come in contact with somebody that's maybe newer to surfing or doesn't surf at all, and it reinforces to you like, oh yeah, this is a language that is so normal to me that is pretty foreign to any non-surfer.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. And then like all the nuances, like looking at the way the clouds are, or stuff like that. That I think, you know, people think you're just kind of crazy if they're not interested in it.
Until they surf, I get this question every so often with
Yeah,
non-surf friends or whatever. Like, where we are is cold. The water is cold year round. It's like California is like Point Conception's like the point of California, right? For people that
yeah,
aren't familiar with it, and everything south of Point Conception is, I'm going to generalize here, slightly warmer. And sometimes the farther south you go, the more warm it is. Currents will change that and otherwise, but water temperature will come up in the summer. Everything
yeah.
above Point Conception
It's
doesn't
crazy.
really change that much.
Okay.
Different small currents, but pretty much where I am on the central coast of California, it's pretty much 50, 55 degrees Fahrenheit temperature, water temperature year round. So like I'm in a
Oh,
4-3 suit all the time and,
yeah.
and, and all of those details of that. And so people ask me like, what gets you up? Like what gets you out of a warm bed at
To go there.
5:30 in the morning to go get in super cold water in the winter when it can, so like the offshore winds can get really cold. And I'm like, well, I could tell you it's surfing, but that really doesn't convey the motivation. Like
Yeah.
once you have that feeling, then the temperatures and the weather and the effort, it is an effort. It's just part of what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, yeah, it makes, like you say, it makes you feel good, and the
Yeah.
connection
Yeah.
to the
Makes
ocean.
everything else better.
Exactly. Surfing does make everything else better, and like the gift that we get to share with people and teach people, but also it's more like sharing the waves in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
This last, like I don't, we have this whole crew of coaches and stuff that work with us, and sometimes, I don't surf with the guests that often. Um, but I have started surfing a lot more with my daughter, which is really cool.
Yeah. Now, how
To
old's your
see,
daughter?
she's only 6, but
Wow.
she's kind of, yeah, she's into it to a certain extent. You know how it is, but
Yeah.
when we're out there together, it's been really small these last 2 weeks, so it's been really golden time to be out there. And,
Yeah.
yeah, seeing everything through her eyes, and like it's cool and like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, my daughter's 16, same thing. It's the connection. It's us as fathers and surfers, and you want them to enjoy this and have this part of it. It's this balance between motivating them to do it, but not forcing it. And that's really
Yeah,
the core of it was for me was I just want you to love the ocean. I just want you to feel that connection to it. If you take to surfing, great. That's
yeah,
awesome. To be able to surf with you would be amazing, but certainly not the most important or the central. It's just this
yeah,
appreciation of this energy and this entity and what
exactly.
that interaction feels like and how it positively impacts your life.
Yeah. And like our daughter, she's grown up with Rise Up. She was born, 6 years ago, obviously, since she's six. And, so she's been surrounded by people, not just seeing her mom and me going out, but
Yeah.
so many people that live with us or the guests. And she's seen some really good, so we have some coaches that work with us are very good surfers. And so she's just around. So I'm like, if she wants to surf, she can just do it, She has,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. People are probably way better teachers than me, you know. I'm happy to be
Yeah,
out there.
it's just being there, being present, and
Yeah,
experiencing that.
it's
That's really what it's all about.
more about it. Exactly.
Yeah,
So so Morro Bay is where you live, right? So I
yeah,
don't. There's nothing to do with. So in the very early days of Rise Up, before we kind of transformed it on this path, a teacher from Morro Bay High School bought a group of kids from it and stayed with
no
us. It was
way. What year was that?
that's pre 2013. So that was like within the first 2 years. I have no idea how they found us. And I
Wow.
guess, it was where we were, there's no, it was a very remote beach. And,
Right.
in the early days, it was, I don't even know how much it cost, but it was cheap, And,
Yeah.
yeah, but he stayed with us for like 15 kids who were all in like the last year of high school or second to last year. I remember them being around, you know, 16, some of them. So I don't know. When do you graduate from high school? What age?
Here in the States, you're usually 17, 18.
Yeah, so they were all like 16 to 18. They were like an
Yeah.
older range. Yeah, it was cool. It was really fun. Some of them were really good surfers. I remember.
Wow, that's a great connect. That's such a great connection. I mean, it's so funny how
Yeah,
certain things happen in life, right? We
yeah,
got introduced to each other by somebody else that I knew that was on an episode of
that's
the podcast, and I reached out
awesome.
to you, and like, I mean, it seems so random, but it's like you having a connection to Morro Bay, which is a small town in the Central Coast of California, and
Yeah,
me going to your home country, which relative to surf travel is not usually on the top of people's list. I mean, it's just so funny
no,
how life happens and connections are made.
yeah. I think the teacher, I actually can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think he really wanted to take them on an adventure, and
Yeah.
Nicaragua was just coming on the map as somewhere that people were starting to go, and obviously it's a lot more. It was definitely more off the beaten path, and obviously like going to regular Costa Rica and stuff. So
Wow, taking 15 high schoolers on
it
a
was,
surf adventure like that. Wow,
yeah,
that's a lot of strength. Good
yeah,
job, teacher.
with only two, yeah, it was only him and one other guy, and then it was like just me and like two other people, So it's like, and I, yeah, I was a kid then too, I'm still a kid. But yeah, it
You,
was
you had a little bit more focused reserve of energy. Is that what you're saying, Philip?
yeah, I was only 10 years old and I was like 28. And I was like, wow, responsible for all these high school kids, but they had a lot of fun. So the waves
Oh,
were,
that's awesome.
yeah, I remember the waves
So
being really,
we're gonna have your website. We're gonna have your social media connections,
yeah,
of course, so people can find out all the Rise Up retreats that are coming in 2024. Sounds like
yeah,
what you mentioned earlier. All your Rise Up retreats are going to be in Nicaragua for the next year, and you're really going to focus on kind of fleshing out and increasing like the coaching components to it, some of the supporting pieces of that. Is there anything else or any place else that people should go to learn more about you or anything else that you'd like to add about some of the exciting things that you guys have coming up in 2024?
yeah. I mean, I think that it's pretty, yeah. Social media is the easiest, and our website, of course. And then 2024, it's really about, just like we said, leveling up all the things and creating experiences that keep, our mission says to, elevate the lives of people, So that's, whatever that means for each guest. Just want them going home having had an amazing experience. So yeah, I think just, creating great experiences, retreats, and, dialing in a few of the other wellness side of things. And yeah, we don't, we feel very happy and very proud to do what we do. So I hope that, just to keep sharing it next year. And, maybe the year after that, we'll start doing retreats in other places again.
Nice. I kind of like that idea, that focus of like bringing it down into, really kind of implementing and testing in Nicaragua and having less variables there to really implement that and then be able to replicate those out that much more effectively.
Yeah, because I feel that, we had the crisis 2018 and then, not long after it went into COVID. So, coming out of COVID it's a little bit more, it was a little more of like survival mode kind of, because you didn't know when people were going to come or how many. And so you kind of were taking what you could get. And, quite a few of the crew had been working with the kind of, things changed, through COVID. So, there's only a handful of like the very long-term crew that are still with me now, but it's kind of like you have to kind of rebuild and restructure and, and still manage your peace of mind and all that type of stuff. So it's a combination of all the things together, like personally, not just for myself, but for the team and for my, my partner and our daughter. I think if we can just do like what we do, just do it really good in Nicaragua, then yeah, we have so many amazing people that work with us that, people, Rise Up could spread a lot more in the future, but want to make sure the recipe and everything is really something we can really stand behind and not be in survival mode all the time, which is kind of what happened after COVID for a while. So,
yeah, that's really exciting. I'm excited to see. Excited to see all the things that you guys do, and the mission, the part of it is the part that just feels so great. It's just like you're connecting people to this true experience, and the community aspect that you guys have going. People, just like I said earlier, people really craving that, and it's just like so humbled what comes across from you about the privilege of doing what you do, and I feel that in what I do, and just being able to help and support people coming through this experience and then taking that back to their lives and hopefully replicating that and spreading that to people around them too. It really is just powerful. It's how positive change happens.
Yeah, definitely. I think on the community side, like I think people come and they get to spend time around just like really positive people who just have a really, good outlook on life. And I think that makes a difference. Sometimes I think people, I don't realize it, because I don't live outside of the bubble I'm in too much. But I do when I travel, or I was just in the States for a few weeks in October, and I do see that there is a lot of, depending on, your situation, people are just stressed out, the world is a little bit like, all people are good people in one way or another. But yeah, I can see this coming to the retreats and just around people who are smiling and there for you and just, love life. It's cool. It uplifts people for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Phil, thanks so much for being on the Surfstrong Show. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I can't wait to see everything that you guys accomplish in 2024. You can change people's lives.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
I'd like to remind you to like, subscribe, and comment wherever you get your podcasts, or at surfstrongfit.com/podcast for all full episodes, notes, transcripts, and links that we talk about in every episode. Thanks for joining us. It really means a lot.